been a hot minute since I have sat here and done a video. Oh my gosh. Hello, if you're new here, my name is Claudia with Spell Funny. It's got 3 Y's instead. I don't really know why, but it does. And today we've got a very fun video planned. I don't know how to sit and film a video anymore. The last video I did was obviously the Brighton vlog, which if you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. It was one of the best experiences of my life. It is very poorly edited, but you know what? For my first proper video, like, that I've had to actually edit and take time editing, and to be fair, half the clips were filmed at the wrong angle, which is really weird. I think I did a pretty okay job. So I left it to my mods today to decide which video I did, because it was either going to be the video you are seeing now, or it was going to be a full story from start to finish of my chronic pain and how we went from being a 13-year-old doing a bunch of sports to a 20-year-old and what happened in that time period. But instead, today we are going to be talking about the ghost experiences that I've had in this very house, in this very room, in this very spot that I am sat in right now. So, for those of you who don't know, my hair's just not having it today. I'd like to point that out. I dyed my hair and this side so damaged. As you can see by these strands, a lot of them have like snapped, but it's okay. So, for those who don't know, I believe in ghosts. I always have. Ghosts don't scare me. I'm scared of horror, but like ghosts don't scare me. I literally have a ghost tattoo now because I think it's really cool and like the paranormal and all that. It's always been something that I think is very cool. When I was a little kid, I spoke about this on stream, which if you don't follow me on stream, there will be a link. Click it. Go watch me. I speak about stuff like this randomly. When I was a little kid, I must have been about 7 or 8, we went to a pantomime. And there was like this like fake ghost on the stage. And I remember getting home from that and I just like couldn't sleep. But then I fell asleep and I woke up randomly in the middle of the night, which I never used to normally do. That wasn't a thing that I did. I was very good at just sleeping through the night. So it was already really weird for me to be awake. I didn't know the time at all because I was a kid and I didn't have a clock in my bedroom and I didn't have a phone. So I didn't know what time it was, but it was like dark out and everyone was in bed. So it was past like 11 p.m. But before, it was between the hours of like 11 and like 5 a.m. Okay, like that time period. So go up and I go to the bathroom and I come into my room and I shut the door. Now, in my house in England, we had really weird windows that were locked and they just never had a key in them. There was one key for all the windows in the house. And my window just so happened to be one of the windows that were locked. And I didn't have a key because, again, I was a kid and I lose everything. I'm 20 years old and I still lose everything. Don't trust little me with anything. So I didn't have a key and I shut my door. This is valid information, by the way. I'm not just telling you this. I shut my door and I get into my bed and I had a bunk bed. Just a regular bunk bed at this point. 2 beds. I currently have a triple bunk bed. I am going to be saying things and then it's going to sound like they don't make sense, but they do. So I had a regular bunk bed. Now, we all kind of just knew not to go downstairs. There was no reason for us to ever go down the stairs because we had a toilet up the stairs, like we had water bottle, like we had no reason to be going downstairs at whatever time of the night this decided to be. And so I get back into my bed and my door flings open. But nobody's awake. And there's no wind because none of the windows can open. So I like sit up in my bed and I'm like, okay, who is taking the mick out of me and flinging my door open? Nobody's moving about. The house is dead silent until I hear a little noise downstairs of these cups moving about. And that was enough for me. I threw that blanket over my head and I completely fell asleep. Good night. Did not wake up. That was the only experience I can like remember from when I was in England. Then we move up here. Now, A little backstory on where I live. My house is brand new. Nobody lived here before us. I live in a very family, I guess it's a family estate, I would say. I don't know if it's an estate, but that's what I'm going to call it. It's a very family orientated area. Everybody who lives here is pretty much family, has kids, stuff like that. And from what I heard from somebody else, it is built on an old burial ground. Don't know how true this is because I didn't look into it. But apparently it is built on an old burial ground. So, kind of makes sense. So, the first thing I ever had when I was here was I would get, like, I'd wake up with, like, scratches and bruises. And I was like, this is getting weird. And so I would hear, like, footsteps running. So my bed used to be turned the other way. So the way to explain it is it was a bed, and then there was a ladder going up the side of the bed to the middle bunk, and at the end of the bed to the top bunk, which is where I was. And the ladder that went all the way up faced the door, okay? So I would hear, like, footsteps going up and down my room all the time. And I'd hear, like, a little girl giggling. You'd hear it in the hallway. There'd be thudding. It was really, like, little things like that. So, for context, more context history, there was a little girl who lived across the road from us. She used to just come into our house. She was 5 when she passed away from cancer. She is the reason I got that tattoo there. For anybody who wanted to know the reason behind that tattoo, it was for her. And she used to come in and out, and her family moved to a different house. So in my head, I'm a bit like, maybe it's her. So I'm hearing this little girl giggling, like, nights on nights on nights, like, happens all the time. And then one day, this was before the big thing that made me be like, yeah, ghosts are real, this is it. So I worked a lot. Actually, no, this would have been after the big thing. I'll tell this story first. We won't go in chronological order. Actually, no. We'll tell the big story first. So, I'm laying in my bed and I wake up in the middle of the night. And at this point, that's normal for me. It is normal for me to wake up in the middle of the night. And I wake up and I hear my bedroom door open. But this time, it wasn't like it flung open. It was like somebody just opened it. And I was like, okay, probably just my mom coming to, like, check on us, you know, like, she had told me a few days before that she used to do that a lot when we were kids. She'd come out and she'd just check on us, make sure we were doing alright while we were asleep. So, in my little head, I thought it was my mother. And whatever this thing was, not my mother, spoiler alert, it walks up the room to the ladder that goes up to the middle bunk. So I had my back to that, because the bed was like this way, and the ladder to here. So my back was facing the room. And I hear this thing start climbing the ladder. Now there's only 2 steps on this ladder, okay? And I hear it take the first step, and I'm like, it's my sister getting into bed. So I kind of calm down a little bit, because I'm like, it's just my sister getting into bed. Gets the second step. And then I realize I didn't hear it get onto the bed. And I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit weird now. And all of a sudden, whatever it was, I felt the bed shake as if somebody was climbing it. And I felt 2 elbows, like, that's what it felt like, straight into my back. And it hurt so bad. Like, I have dealt with some pain in my life, okay? This hurt to the point where I flipped over and punched, thinking it was my sister in hopes of hurting them, because I was like, you've just elbowed me knowing that that's my bed. So I punch, hoping that I'm going to hit somebody, because that's going to be less scary, right? If I hit someone, it's just they've gotten into the wrong bed. And I noticed I didn't hit anyone. So I grab a torch, because I used to have a torch on the side of my bed, and I grab it, and I'm shining it across my room, and there is no one there. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, my door must be still shut, because I couldn't see it. So I was like, my door is shut. It was all a dream. Then my mum turns to me the next morning and goes, "Did you get out of bed last night?" And I was like, "No, why?" She goes, "Because your door was open this morning and like no one had gotten up yet." I was like, "Mother, do I have the story for you?" So, this was back when I was in high school. I didn't sleep for about a week. It was awful. Then I started working. And it was when I went to my second job, so it was about a year after I'd left high school. I was at work, and I obviously wasn't on my phone because I was working. I did part housekeeping, part restaurant, depending on what shift I was on. And this shift I did a morning shift, which was my housekeeping shifts. And so it got to like 1 o'clock when I finished, and I realised that I have a missed call from my mum. Now, she knew I was at work, okay? So I phoned her back and I'm like, "Hey," and she's like, "Did you come home today?" And I was like, bit rude. And I was like, not even a hello. And I was like, "No, I just finished work, mother." And she goes, "Somebody just come into the house and went into your bedroom." I'm sorry, you what? You mean to tell me that somebody, while I was at work, is in my bedroom? So I'm like, "Well, did you check?" She goes, "Nobody's in there. The doors are all shut. But somebody come up, went into your bedroom, and went downstairs." And I was like, okay. So she asks everybody who was in this house at the time. Bearing in mind, if you haven't seen my videos, we were a house of 8. We're now a house of 7 because my older brother moved out. But we're a house of 8. She asked all 6 of us, because it's her and my stepdad and then the 6 kids. She asked every single kid, bar the youngest because he was like 2, if they had come home. And I was like, some of these kids wouldn't have been home at that time. A few weeks later, I get another call from my mum. I pick it up. "Hello? Are you at work still?" "Yes." I'm like, this is just a repeat of last time. And I'm like, "Let me guess. Somebody has gone into my room." And she's like, "Yeah, the front door, like we heard the front door open. We're upstairs in our room. We heard the front door open. Somebody come upstairs. They went into your room. They're like walking about in there." And I'm like, do we have an intruder? Because I would like to not have that, please. And I come home, nothing's been taken, so I'm assuming that it wasn't a person. And I'm like, okay, this is getting weird. Another few weeks later, and at this point, I had quit my job and I was at college. I get another phone call, and it's my mother asking me if I had come home from college early, because somebody had come upstairs and gone into my bedroom again, and she could hear them walking about. And I just remember being like, okay, this has to be like either someone's breaking in or somebody's lying. And so I sit down with my mum and my stepdad, and we're sat talking one night, and I'm like, "Hey, do you guys ever like hear or see weird things in this house? Because I keep like hearing something walk about my room and like a child giggling." And my stepdad goes, "Yeah, I went to use the upstairs bathroom, which is down the hall, and the door flung open and the window wasn't open, so it wasn't the wind." And I'm like, okay, so is this the same one that's coming in my bedroom? And then I'm speaking to my mum, and I've asked her the same question, and she goes, "Well, I don't really anymore, but when the youngest brother, he used to sleep in my parents' bedroom in a cot. He is my uncle's kid, but he lives with us, that's all I'm going to say on that. She used to see somebody stand at the bottom of his bed, and it looked like they were making sure he was okay. So she always thought it was my stepdad, but then when she asked my stepdad in the morning, like, 'Oh, I saw you got up to,' insert name, I don't really know what to call him. I don't really have names for myself. We'll call him Scoobs. I've announced that that's a nickname we use. Scoobs, we saw you looking over Scoobs last night, checking if he was okay," and my stepdad would be like, "I didn't get out of bed to him." And this happened on more than one occasion, my mum was saying. And so I was like, okay. And she was saying it looked like her dad, who passed away. Way before I was born. I don't know him at all, so I wouldn't be able to point him out. But she was like, yeah, it looked like him. And then we had some family friends staying up one week back 2020. It was like when COVID restrictions had lifted quite a bit. They were staying here, and 2 of them were in the garden one night, and the next morning they stopped me and they were like, hey, whose bedroom's that? And I was like, that's my little brother's bedroom. Why? And they go, because somebody was stood in the window, like looking out at us last night, and I thought that it was one of you guys, so I started waving, and no one waved back. And I looked at this family friend and I said, no one can get to that part of the bedroom because there is literally a bed in the way. So whatever you saw looking at you last night was not a human. And this guy just looked at me, and the fear in his face, and he was like, I'm not sleeping here tonight. And I was like, oh, that's not the worst of it. And so I explained some of the stories that happened. And it's a lot of stuff of just like doors opening and stuff. And then I started watching Sam and Colby. Because I hadn't really watched them before. I think I'd heard of them, but I never really like actually watched them. And so I started watching them. And I was like, huh, they use like a spirit box and all of this. And like I'd like spoken and been like, if you can hear me, do this, and things would happen. So one night I downloaded a spirit box app. Now I think they're all bullshit because it's on your phone. However, this one night I decided to turn it on, just take the piss with it. And so I had it on. I wasn't saying anything, I just had it on. And it said my name and said, you're turning 20. And this must have been like a month before my birthday, when I was 19. I turned that app off and I never touched it after that for a few months because I was scared. And then the next time I touched it, it was like not really much come on it. It was just like, hi. And I was like, this is really weird. And then I turned the app off because I was like, I don't really believe in them. But that was really weird because I don't have my age on my phone or like the name I use, and it used the name I use. So it was really weird. It was just very strange. I think that was all the ghost stories that happened here. But when I then was telling somebody I know, I was like, it was when I was at work, and they were like, oh, why did you just leave? And I was like, I got a phone call from my mum, like, apparently somebody's walking about in my bedroom. And she goes, oh, my gran, I think it was, lives on your street, like 2 doors down, and has had the exact same experiences. And I was like, huh, bit weird, maybe it's just coincidence. She goes, well, apparently to her, that area was built on a burial ground, and a lot of people have had the same stories. I was like, okay. Now, the other thing about this house is we live right next to this old train track. It is now a little longer train track, and there's no train track there. It is like a really long path that you can walk down, and it's like a really pretty path that people go down. And some nights, if you are awake, you will hear the train go past. And now the actual train station is not close to here at all. And I've heard this train go past, and I asked one of my mates once, I was like, hey, I'm hearing this train go past, like, what time does the last train go? And they're like, oh, by the way, this is why. Because obviously I'm not from here. I know nothing about this place. So I didn't know anything about, like, the old train track. And apparently there is, like, ghost tours you can go on up this track. So that's pretty cool. I've also had experiences in the old hotel I worked at, the hotel where I did housekeeping part-time, the one where my mum phoned me saying I was home, where there was like a little kid, and if you were talking or like laughing, it would tell you to shush. Like, I had it one night where I was like talking to someone and I heard a shh. I've seen it walk past the kitchen doors. One day, one of our chefs, lovely woman this person was, cutting up mushrooms, and she was putting them in the tray, and the tray flung across the surface and straight into the bin. And she was more angry about the waste of the mushrooms than she was about anything else. This was before I got on shift, so this was a story that was told to me. But I used to have to like go and deliver things to rooms and clean rooms, and I would constantly hear like moving about, which you'd think is guests, but guests will check out by a certain time, unless they are staying in the hotel, and even then we get told what rooms have people in. And it was weird. It would be like this little kid. It was a lot of stuff on my evening shifts more than my morning shifts, where it'd be like little, you'd hear like somebody walk past you but there's no one there, you'd hear like the giggles and somebody telling you to shush. But other than that, I think that's all of the ghost stories from this house and my old work. For context, my old work is a 2-minute walk that way, and the train track is a 2-minute walk that way. So it is all in like the vicinity of my house, which is weird. But I think that's all of the stories from this house. If you guys want to see, I do want to do a video explaining my, I guess, disability story. I don't really know what to call it, to be fair, from start to finish. If you guys want that, let me know. I think it might be a pretty cool video, and it might raise awareness overall. And yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, I think that's it. The links will be down below. Twitch will also be down below. Check me out on there. I post more on Twitter. I post on Twitter every single day. I post on Instagram every once in a blue moon. And I post on TikTok like once a week, I'd say. So if you want more content, check out my Twitter. If you want less content, check out my Instagram. And I will see you guys all in the next video, whenever that will be, because I don't post very much. I just filmed this, but somebody's stream is on my PC, and I forgot to turn it off, so I had to film it again. But in editing this video, this is the same day that I'm editing it, just a few hours later, I was making lunch and my kitchen door opened on its own. But I did open the back door, so I think it was that. But the door was shut, and I did shut the kitchen door, and then I opened the back door again later on and it didn't open, so I thought it was necessary to add to this video. So there you go.